When fighting games should be called juggling games instead. Verb: fighting. To contend in battle or physical combat, especially to strive to overcome a person by blows or weapons. Fighting implies that both players are participants in the fight. Juggling occurs when only one player is. The difference between a juggle and a combo is simple. A combo occurs when you chain attacks that the opponent has been unable to block. Juggles occurs when a player chains attacks that an opponent is unable to block. As an analogy, juggling is closer to skateboarding, where the player is alone in his bubble chaining tricks. It does take a certain amount of skills, but it's not fighting. And once you mastered a series of tricks, it's done. You can redo it over and over effortlessly. That's not fighting. Dragon Ball Z is an anime that is all about fighting. The best of the best. Sure, Dragon Ball FighterZ captures the speed of those battles, but it completely fails to capture the essence of fighting.
I don't think you like fighting games, I think you like your misconception of what fighting games should be. If you liked fighting games, you'd have more hours in them.
More hours in them? Oh right, because you thought by looking at my Steam profile you would get any accurate info about that. Sorry to disappoint, but I've played most of my fighting games on console. I've been playing fighting games since 1991. Spent countless hours playing Mortal Kombat 2, Street Fighter 2, King of Fighters 94, 95, 98, 2002, Gerau, Mark of the Wolves, Street Fighter Third Strike, Street Fighter 4, Dead or Alive series, Injustice, etc. Gerau Mark of the Wolves. The King of Fighters 2002 Unlimited Match. Those two are my favorites fighting games of them all at the moment, for different reasons of course. I just never get tired of playing Terry Bogard, especially in 2002. But what makes me go back to those games are always very specific things. And I would say, if I can't parry or counter, roll or dash, chain or cancel moves, I'll probably get bored quickly. And while my circle of friends have always been more into competitive multiplayer FPS games, I got two friends who are into fighting games more. One of them was a Street Fighter player tournament player and the other was all about Dead or Alive, a SS player. And I could play on their level. I just freaking hate juggles. Not that I hate to get killed by them, I just find them freaking boring to do. I just profoundly hate it when I hit someone who can't fight back. That's not challenging, doesn't feel satisfying and certainly not rewarding either. And as long as fighting games follow that trend, I'll never be interested in competing. It would just feel like a waste of time. I find that FPS games are better designed and more appropriate for competitive play compared to fighting games. And when it comes to shooter games, I've spent at least 4,000 hours on games such as Soldier of Fortune 2, Splinter Cell, Pandora, Tomorrow's Spies vs Mercs, Halo 2, 3 and Halo Reach, R6 Black Arrow, R6 Vegas 2, Battlefield 2142, Battlefield Bad Company 2, Delta Force Black Hawk Down, Gears of War, Unreal Tournament Pre-Alpha, Counter-Strike Source, Lawbreakers. Note you can even find my guide here on how to play Wraith and Lawbreakers, but maybe FPS games aren't your thing. I started to play FPS games at the highest levels back then in 2002 to 2003. I was 16-17 years old. I'm 31 now. Playing competitive games is what I do for a living and I made it my job too. I've been working as a game level designer since 2008. But I've always wanted to be able to make my own games myself and now 10 years later I'm a game dev proficient in game design, level design, 3D art, QA testing and am currently adding software game programming to my belt. And you won't find many devs in the industry who can produce a professional level of quality in multiple fields. We call them unicorns. When it comes down to combat-oriented games, rare are the players who went as far as I went in terms of highest skill level and even fewer who have reached a high skill level on a wide variety of multiplayer games. And I've never met a single game developer, even less game designers who have a similar background to mine. That makes me a super unicorn. And obviously, you could go like, oh man, this guy must have a big ego. Actually, I really don't. I just eat combat-oriented games for breakfast and I care a hell lot about their future. Our future. Now, if you think you can school me about fighting games, that's cute. DBFZ is elementary school grade. It's your COD or Overwatch. However, I purchased Guilty Gear Xrd and DBFZ because of how they did the art style. It's something of great interest to me.
Heh, Unreal. Always wanna be Quake. They managed pretty graphics but little else. You're not going to impress me, especially on old school cred, with anything less than a Quake. Notorious in Lawbreakers? So you're the king crocodile in a dried up mudhole what never had prey. Anyone from my day, especially, would know to avoid anything Cliffy B touches. Trusting him is like trusting Molyneux. I digress. My point was that even Runt can be the big fish if the pool is small enough. Congrats on being that Runt. As for your game dev claims, I find it extremely odd, in the face of your claims, that you do not know of the definitions of developer and designer. Developer typically includes almost every position that worked on a project. Designer is a nebulous term. It is a member of developers. It encompasses many kinds of work, from formulating systems to deciding on art. Historically, before the indie explosion with direct industry standard definitions, a game designer worked between the different departments to meld all of their work into a continuous whole. After all, the skill set you've claimed can be described as I made third models and environments. You were an artist, not a systems designer. With what you've claimed so far, you probably could put together a decent mod for some moddable game. I'm also wasting time typing words, not posting videos. Those didn't take any time at all.
Game developer is a term used to describe either outside of video games. I've been a former Taekwondo ITF practitioner and tournament fighter. And I trained in a school that had been the house of multiple Canadian champions over the years. Right place, right time. I was lucky to train there for a decade and train with those guys. There were regional tournaments, provincial state tournaments, Canadian Championship, Pan American Championship and World Championship. I didn't participate to any World Championship, but I participated at the Pan American Championship and finished third place in both forms and combat. That background turned me into a game designer specialized in combat-oriented action games. That includes FPS games, 3D action-adventure and fighting games. And I'm especially specialized in FPS games. I'm currently working on my 8th FPS game. And if you think skills don't translate between those genres, it's usually because the person 1. Has never reached a higher level in anything. 2. Has never reached a higher level in at least 2 different fields. 3. Is obviously not a polymath aka specialist in more than one field. Game designer isn't a specialization, it's a multi-specialization, meaning that any game designer is going to benefit from being also a level designer, programmer, artist, former higher level player, etc. And unfortunately, there aren't many game designers out there who possess even just half of my background. But not everyone is necessarily interested in getting better at game design. Most people just want to work in video games. It's a cool job. Come back home and relax. You might be surprised to hear that a hell lot of game developers generally don't really play games at home after work. Now, if you want to get into my background as a competitive player, there are 2 options. A. You ignore me. B. You trust me. Why? Because I didn't spend the past 20 years obsessively recording every match I've ever played to then make a nice YouTube channel just to bring you proof of it. In fact, I've been the most active during 1997 to 2004 and that was the age of VHS. I remember getting a digital video capture card only around 2006. We didn't have Twitch and stuff back then.
Let me ask you then. If this is the case, then why only casual players and scrubs complain about combos either? Because they deem them cheap or too hard to perform? While the competitive scene known as FGC on the other hand actually appreciates them and even gets hyped for games with new combo mechanics.
What becomes a standard is what sells. Nothing to do with design quality. Auto-aim became a thing on console. Should never have been. Quake popularized bunny hopping, should never have been. Quake 3 Arena popularized loud footstep sounds, dumbest thing ever. It's a 360 wall hack. All those button combos in Halo 2 became a thing and totally messed up MLG settings later on with RRX. FighterZ popularized combos, same thing. When it comes to player types, you have players who have a good sense of game design and others who really don't. Type A someone with a solid sense of game design and competitive play would tell you that the AWP in Counter-Strike shouldn't exist in the first place. Or the sword off in Gears of War 3. Or the shock combo in Unreal Tournament. Type B someone who doesn't have a solid sense of game design and competitive play will argue that those things are all justified because of how the economy works in the game, map control or else. Which isn't wrong, but it's only partially true. But the thing is, the core issue is still there. The AWP in CSS, regardless of the economy, is no skill to use. It's not fun to use. Sure, it fits with the economy of the game, but as a gun it's not fun to use. Of course, if you are a noob and can't get kills, you might actually enjoy using the AWP. Same reason why noobs enjoy COD, but FPS fans really hate COD. And here it is the same with juggles. If a player is here for the fighting, for the skill-based gameplay and the min-games, he won't enjoy the long combos. Yes, there is a strategy to it, there are other things around it, and sometimes you can break out of it in certain games, you can chain supers, etc. But the bottom line is, a long combo is going to feel very boring to perform for many players. Now the funny thing is many ignorant people confuse Type A with scrubs. They aren't the same thing. The whole JIT God adapt mentality is red heart suit, to begin with. Players have to become able to recognize poorly designed gameplay mechanics and ask devs to improve the game, tweak, fix or replace certain things. You don't have to eat red heart suit just because that's what we were given. And we live in a time now where a lot of games are being developed and improved with patches on the fly. Continuous maintenance.